My name is Star Hoffman. I'm the Journalism and Digital Resources Librarian here at Columbia University, and I am a member of the Symposium Committee. You can see all the committee members and volunteers have these lovely bright orange tags, so if you have any questions, please be sure to find somebody with a bright orange tag. And I want to say thanks to all of my fellow planning committee members today for all their hard work. Barbara Rockenbach, Elise Jordan, Ellie Ransom, and Donna Nexu. And we're just really excited that you all came. And thank you, too, to all our volunteers for all their hard work. They'll be answering any questions you have, pointing out where restrooms are, and they'll also be helping you get to the lunch venue, which is downstairs in this same building. Okay, so we're going to open today. We have opening remarks from Robert Wolven, who is the Associate University Librarian for Bibliographic Services and Collection Development here at Columbia University Libraries. He's a frequent speaker and writer on issues related to digital content, metadata, and technical services in libraries, and he's served on many planning and advisory groups, including for the Library of Congress. So please help me welcome Bob Wolven.
So over the course of the next several hours, I know you'll be hearing a lot more depth on some of the themes that I'll introduce here. And I won't try to compete with our other speakers in those areas. What I will hope to do in the next 15 minutes or so is to just offer some general reflections on the concept of leadership and leadership development. And I hope with any luck, some of those will resonate with other themes that are discussed later in the day. And if not, you'll hear a bunch of crazy crackpot ideas and be able to criticize them and so forth. So when I'm thinking about the qualities that I associate with a leader, I really tend to cluster them into two groups. On the one hand, we have the kinds of qualities necessary to craft a vision and articulate a vision for others. And that includes things like creativity, imagination, supple thinking, and of course the passion to believe deeply in an idea and care about having it realized in actuality. So a great idea is deeply felt. And then there's another cluster alongside of that of the personal qualities that enable someone to put something across, that attract followers to an idea. Charisma, persuasiveness, the ability to inspire people and so forth. So a bunch of clusters of ideas associated with personality. So if you take these two sides of leadership, you might say that leadership is either in your genes or in your genes, as the case may be. This suggests, though, that leadership is innate, that it's all inborn. And given the themes that we're talking about today, the question arises: can we take the Woebegone model and everyone's above average, and can we expect anyone and everyone to be a leader? And I won't go into depth on that because we'll be exploring that in some detail, but this first quote here comes from Stephen Leacock, one of his parodies of 19th century novels of the romantic hero. And if you substitute the word lead for road there, I think you have one of the risks we have by just harping on leadership all the time. Leadership is something that evolves, it can be fostered, but you can't force it. And so you run the risk of desperation. Gotta lead, where can I lead? And then on the other hand, leadership is something that comes about whether you want to or not. And there's always the possibility that you will find yourself in a situation where you're called upon to be a leader without ever having intended to. And that's, I think, one of the reasons we are going to be exploring things like how to develop leadership so that you're ready for it when the time comes. Similarly, the image that comes to my mind, the first image that comes with a leader is you've got the general on the white horse waving the sword, leading on thousands of troops. But there are many styles of leadership, many opportunities and different ways of leading. And I would suspect that Mother Teresa there on the left never thought of herself as, never intended to be a leader, probably never even thought of herself as being a leader. And yet, by her mode of living, she has become an icon for a set of ideals and a way of living that's inspired a great many people. And if that's not leading, I don't know what is. And then on the right, the women's rights movement in 19th century America was benefited enormously by the fact that it didn't depend on a single great individual taking the whole burden on themselves, but on a number of strong women grouping together and leading in a collaborative, cooperative fashion going forward. And I'm sure these are both themes that will also be explored throughout the course of the day. We also tend to think of leadership, I think, in positive terms. It just evokes those kinds of terms. But it's worth remembering that you can be a very effective leader and do very bad things. So I'm sure everyone recognizes the man on the left. How many people know the man on the right? Okay, James Jones, Jonestown, drinking the Kool-Aid. You inspire people to drink poisoned Kool-Aid, and we don't want that to be happening either. Now, I'm not suggesting that at the end of this meeting today you're going to know how to become the next dictator of the world or madman or anything like that. But it's worth remembering that leadership is a means to something. It's not an end in itself. And so that's a theme I'd like to consider as we go forward. And moving on, it's possible to have all the qualities I just described, to be either a natural or a developed leader, and to go wrong somewhere along the line. And I just want to offer three ways this can happen, three possibilities for leadership going awry. A little conversation ahead of time suggested this one, although obviously I thought of it before. If you're out there by yourself, nobody's following you, you're not really a leader. And especially early in a career, you've got a great idea, you want to put it forward, you're impatient to see it happen, you want to get it going. And there's always the risk that, I've heard this myself, a little bit later you say, I tried to lead, but those people just didn't listen. That organization is just too conservative to follow. Now, if your great idea is that slavery is wrong or that gay people should have rights, you probably don't want to wait and be patient and get people comfortable with that idea over many years. But if your great idea is there's a better way to catalog a book, it doesn't hurt to take the time to develop it and let it mature, to let it go. This is one of my favorite because it's one of the risks that I face myself. You start out with a great idea and you actually get people to believe in it and follow along. But in the process of that, you inevitably have to simplify things. And getting stuck on an idea, becoming too wedded to your own ideas, is a risk that I think you can face in the course of trying to lead. So once you find that people are on board and they're agreeing with you, it's time to get a critical look at yourself and say, what's going on? How can I change this and move things forward again? Not get stuck at the point that I was originally aiming at. And finally, nobody should lead forever and all the time. So this is a risk that I think we contribute to, not as leaders, but just as people in the world, in the profession. Once you see someone doing a good job, being a successful leader, you tend to look to them for leadership. But we don't want to look to the same people for leadership all the time. We want people who will stand aside and let others step into that role and move forward. Well, if all these things can go wrong, if you can become a lousy leader even though you're effective at it, if you can become an ineffective leader even though you have the right qualities, what we need is the second theme that I want to bring up, and that's mentorship. And I promised I would work Merlin into this presentation at some point. So this is a classic mentor-leader relationship. The one I'm thinking of, and probably in your own heads, is not the Howard Pyle Merlin and Arthur there, but the Disney and T.H. White Sword in the Stone Merlin. Arthur has the potential to be a great leader, a great king, but he won't realize that unless Merlin gives him this whole series of life lessons. And so this gets into the idea of how do you develop and foster the qualities that will make someone a leader in future. And when I think of the qualities of a mentor, they're not quite the same. I'm looking at qualities like patience, the ability to convey ideas clearly and patiently, understanding of the individual, psychological insight into what makes people work the way they do and motivate others, the ability to encourage and at the same time to be critical of thinking and not just let it go awry. And above all, the desire to help someone else realize their potential. Now, these qualities may or may not combine with the qualities that make a good leader. So one of the points here is that in any organization, there's a role here for people who can help others become leaders and not necessarily take the lead themselves overall. And just as it's possible to be effective as a leader and be not a good one, it's possible to do that as a mentor. I'm not sure, Svengali is an idea from the past, and John Barrymore is an actor from the past. I couldn't resist this slide, but Svengali is a mentor who develops a star, but then wants to control. And the positive mentor is someone who will develop and then give up, let go, and let the person develop on their own. Now, what's the one thing every leader needs? Followers. No matter what you think you're leading, if nobody's following you, you're not a leader. And the process of being a follower can also make you, position you to become a better leader in future. So following someone that you admire, whose ideas you're interested in working on yourselves, can give you an opportunity for close-up observation, for a close working relationship with someone who can help you. The opportunity to be mentored by someone who has shown that they're interested in that and successful as well, and then lead you to eventually becoming a leader in your own right. So this is part of that patience and timing of developing a career in the course of it, becoming both a follower and eventually a leader. And many of the leaders of the past have been followers. I just, for lack of time, put up a couple of names here. You know, Plato is a great Greek philosopher and known to be a follower of Socrates. Isaac Newton I don't associate with a particular mentor or leader, but he's well known for the quote, "If I have seen further, it's because I stand on the shoulder of giants," paying tribute to the people who led to him to being able to do what he was able to. Now, I've gotten almost to the end of my time, and I haven't talked at all about mastery and mystery, so let me just say a few words on that. Here we have Daniel Boone, ready to lead a group of hardy pioneers off into the wilderness of Kentucky. And if you're going to follow this guy into a place that you don't know, that might be scary and difficult, you want to know that he knows what he's talking about. So a true leader also is a master of something, of a body of information, a body of ideas and knowledge and skills that can inspire others and help others to have confidence in their abilities as well. The mystery is inherent, I think. As we are leading into new and different and unknown territories, there's bound to be things that we can't predict and anticipate in advance. And that, I think, is one of the more exciting challenges of both being a leader and following a leader, not knowing exactly where you're going. So ideally, all this can come together in one package. You find someone with the vision to inspire, to say, I know a better way of doing things. I know that we can be in a better place. Trust me, because I've got the skills, I've got the knowledge to convince you that I can do this successfully and help to make this work. But at the same time, I don't know all the answers. We're going to explore this together. That will be a great opportunity and exciting, but it will also create some risks as well, and we need to be prepared to take those. Along the way, I'll do my best to impart what I do know, to help you to learn from this process and from me, so that in the end, I can step aside when the time comes and you'll have the opportunity to explore new paths and new developments. Thank you for your time. I hope some of these ideas will be picked up and explored in other ways in the course of the day, and I hope you have a very successful next several hours. Thank you.
So Jerilyn Veldof is going to present to us on leadership development in action. She's currently leading organization development for the University of Minnesota Libraries in the Twin Cities. And in this role, she provides consultation, leadership, and oversight for initiatives that increase the library's capacity to realize its strategic priorities and work more effectively. She's given over 75 workshops and presentations, and she's also published a book with ALA. So please welcome Jerilyn.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. Thanks to Damon and his colleagues who brought me here. It's so nice to be back on the East Coast. I grew up in Trenton. Elliot, did you hear that? And we both say Wooder. Trenton. And we both say Wooda. I noticed that. So just landing here, getting into New York is just such a relaxing. Minnesota is still a foreign country to me. I don't know if you said this, Star, but I've been there like almost 16 years, so it shouldn't be. It's kind of pathetic. Okay, so Some of you know Wendy Luget. She is our dean at Minnesota. Yes, I'm seeing some nods. She came here and spoke last year, so many of you may have heard her. She and I had a chance last week or a couple weeks ago to sit down and talk about our leadership development programs. And she said this, and so I quickly jotted it down because I thought it was quite notable. We've done something game-changing to focus on leadership. And that's why I'm here. I am your case study. I am the, wait a minute, how does this look in action? That's what we're trying to do. I'm going to share with you about, not a lot of the details, but at least you'll get a nice overview of what we're doing. And I hope it's going to give you an opportunity to think about your own interests in leadership development, and even more importantly, your library's interest in leadership development. And I hope you walk away with a couple things. First thing is that you'll have some ideas of programs that you could actually launch in your library. And I'm hoping that you'll have some drive or motivation to actually do it. So we'll see how I do. You can let me know. So first thing I want to do is introduce you to a colleague of mine. His name's Eric. And he's one of the many people who keep our ILS functioning. And he's a guy, I never even met him before he came into this program that I'm going to be talking about. So the video that I'm going to show you is just after he finished what is a core leadership program in our repertoire of development programs. And it involves doing assessments, and it involves having one-on-one coaching, and creating an individual development plan. So I'll talk about that later, but I just wanted to give you a little background. He just came out of the program at the point of the video where I'm going to start it. Like I said, before we started, I didn't even know him. I'm on millions of committees, millions of projects, so I get to work with a lot of people in our libraries, and I've also worked in the same building with him for like a decade. Never saw him. He's the kind of head-down kind of guy. He does his job. He's good at it, but he just doesn't get up and out very much, which is not atypical for people in his position. And so let me see if I can tee this up. Okay. Hopefully the volume will work. Let's see. So this is Patty. Ignore her. Eric's on next. Little background. This video I did as a kind of promotional piece to recruit people into this program. So we've done it 3 times. This is after the first year. And I will give you the URL to this if you feel like watching the whole thing. I'm only going to show you a couple segments of it. All right, let's see. Let's make it big.
Maybe I just had not been looking in the right directions. Maybe I didn't see the potential that I had. Maybe other people weren't seeing the potential that I had. But it looked like I was stuck in the same track probably from now till when my career with the libraries might be over. But here I am at age 55, and I've been given an opportunity to reinvent myself. And this program was sort of the spark that got the whole thing going.
Okay, so I hope you heard that. He said this program was sort of the spark that got the whole thing going. It's very common for people in our programs, especially this core program, who feel stuck. Many of them have been working in the same job for a long time. They've been in the same library for a long time. We have very little turnover, very little turnover in our library. We have really long-term employees, and to the extent that I have a friend who works in, she was doing her master's in HR, and she did a study about longevity across campus, and she pulled me aside and said, I was shocked. The libraries are outliers. You're crazy off the charts in terms of longevity. So 25, 30-year, 40-year people work in the libraries, and this is one of them. He made his career out of this job. 55 years old, felt stuck, thought he had potential that was untapped. This is a pretty common profile of people who are drawn into the program, specifically this program. I want to introduce you to one other person by way of introduction to some of the things we're doing. This is Ryan Mackey. He's more at the beginning of his career. He's an archivist, and he runs a special collection. He's got a few people who do report to him. And so this is right after he went through the first year of this program. It's a 9-month program. All right, let me see if I can tee this up. 550. Whoops. Uh-oh. Whoa. All right, hold on for a second. It's going to make you dizzy, so look away, look away. All right.
About leadership has increasingly been a thing that I spend time doing. And what the assessment shows, actually, I do have a lot of these attributes that make good and effective leaders. And being intentional about developing that aspect of me, I've discovered that that's something I actually really quite enjoy a bit.
Okay, so this is another person who's a really good candidate for programs. He's dabbling as a leader. He's starting to kind of think about himself that way, but he doesn't have much confidence. He's not quite sure where he wants to move in his career. So another really good candidate for at least our basic program. Let me get back to our slides. So as I said, a lot of people come into the programs, especially the core leadership programs, uncertain about themselves as a leader. They haven't yet really fully created a leadership identity. So they don't necessarily see themselves as a leader, but they're curious. They think there might be potential, and they just don't know what to do with it. They just need a little help. And for whatever reason, their supervisor isn't able to do that kind of coaching and mentoring, or they don't have a mentor in the profession. They're kind of on their own, kind of floundering a bit. And I want to talk about this leadership identity a little bit more because I think it is so crucial, and it's something that we need to intentionally cultivate in our libraries. And I'll talk a little bit about why, but let me just say that this is important. And a lot of leadership identity comes out of having, first thing you have to do is you have to have what's called a growth mindset. Okay, this is a really good book. Has anybody been able to read it? Yeah, I've got a couple people who've raised their hand. This is one of those things. I was in the airport when I was coming over here, and I looked in the bookstore, and it's, one of the how many hundreds of books that made it through to the bookstore at the airport. So it's been read a lot. The person who wrote this is a psychologist at Stanford. And in this book, she goes into many, many, many of the ways in which our beliefs about our own ability to grow and to develop shape every aspect of our lives. And she found that there are some people who believe their personal traits are fixed, and there are some people that believe they can be developed. And this is really fundamental. The fixed mindset is the one I want to focus on because this is the mindset that gets us into trouble. So the fixed mindset is when you believe your intelligence or your personality never really change. How you're born is how you'll die. And you've got 120 IQ when you're 12, you're going to have 120 IQ when you're 90. It doesn't matter what you do. So if you have a fixed mindset, you're much more likely to invest everything you've got into proving that you're smart. It's interesting how this correlates with the competency trap. I like to look into that. You may be too afraid to ask questions in a venue like this, or if you do ask questions, you tend to ask them in a way that just shows how smart you are or how capable you are. It's a way of getting approval and a sort of stamp of affirmation. The fixed mindset will prevent you from trying anything new because you don't want to fail. You're afraid of failure. You can't stand the idea of not being the best at something. And I'm sad to say, but my daughter has this mindset. She is a fixed mindset person, and she was like that. Now, my son is not. My son is really a growth mindset person, but my daughter, for whatever reason, is a fixed mindset person. So this is a picture of her on her first day of kindergarten. So what do you do in kindergarten? What do you learn? You learn how to read. Do you know how difficult this is for a fixed mindset person? Because for the first 6 months of kindergarten, she had no idea what she was doing. She was failing. She was blundering. She was basically revealing to herself and others that she wasn't that smart. She thought she was smart, but maybe she's not so smart. It's hard to learn to read. I am still to this day, what is it, March? I'm still to this day the only person she will read to when she's practicing. For some reason, she'll allow me to see her fail or see her incompetent, but she doesn't want anybody else to see her that way. I really, really feel for her. This is a really problematic mindset to have, to start your life like this. It's my job as her mother. I just swallowed my throat last year. Ah! See, I'm so emotional about it. It really does, it deeply concerns me. My job as her mother is to coach her into a growth mindset. I don't have to do this with my son. He already has it. And here's the thing that's so sad about the fixed mindset, is that these are folks who plateau early. They never meet their full potential because they don't want to be not competent, right? They don't want to look not so smart. And that's what kills me. These are the people who get stuck in a job for life. They get really, really good at something, and they never want to step out and be incompetent, even if it's just for 6 months or just for a year, or it just means they have to go to some development programs a little bit and get some mentoring and coaching. They're not going to step out. It's really too frightening. So think about this in terms of your life. Which one of these mindsets, growth mindset or fixed mindset, really describes you? Now, of course, I haven't really talked about the growth mindset. You can read the book and learn about it. But I'm assuming that you're picking up on what the growth mindset is. This is when you actually feel like you can grow and change and develop. And that failure is a learning experience. It's not a reflection on your competency or your intelligence. It's a whole other paradigm. And I actually am thankful for the whole gaming industry, because I think that is partly why my son can have a growth mindset, because games are made for people with growth mindsets. You fail, you screw up, you get killed, you come back. You keep coming back, you get more lives. And I love that. And then you get to this level, and then you get to that level, and I wish my daughter would play video games. So think about your library. Now, you've thought about yourself. Now think about your library. Does your library culture have a fixed mindset, or does your library culture have a growth mindset? You want to say something? You have nothing to say. Okay. So if your organization, I don't even know if this is really like kosher, if you can really say it this way, but I'm going to say it. If your organization has a fixed mindset, once people are hired, once you've got you hire for competency, you hire for experience, you hire somebody who's done the job before. And once they get in that job, that's it. They're done. They've aspired to what they can achieve, and you're done with them. Now imagine being in a growth mindset organization. This is where hard work, this is where effort gets rewarded. Effort is not a reflection that you're dumb, or not something isn't coming easily to you, which means something about you. And a growth mindset organization, hard work and failure are good things, because it means we're learning. We're constantly learning. Coaching is something that's valuable. Learning, development is something that's valuable. You are full of potential in a growth mindset organization. In a fixed mindset organization, you've already reached your potential. You're working in your potential. Thank you very much. So you can see our growth mindset in our vision, mission, and overall goal for our leadership programs. The vision is to build and I'm so sorry, if you're a designer and you're just like hating this slide, I really, really am sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. Red and blue really are bad. So if you are a designer and you'd like to volunteer some time to redesign my slides, I would really appreciate it. Okay, my apologies. Okay, so our vision, build a vibrant leadership culture in the university libraries. Build, that's another word for a growth mindset organization, right? Our mission is to develop current and emerging leaders. Growth mindset, we can emerge as leaders at all levels. Leadership writ large. We've already had people talk about leadership is not about if you're a manager or if you're a director or if you're an associate university librarian. Leadership at all levels is our definition of leadership. So what is our goal in our programs? It's to strengthen our ability to be effective and successful by preparing and supporting current and emerging leaders at all levels. And I feel like I just need to take a few moments, even though probably don't, but I'm going to do it anyway, to just underscore why this is so important to us, why we're committed to this. There are 3 reasons. The first is that there is no time to waste. I feel like, you know that like Pac-Man thing? It's like gobble, 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 gobble. It's like coming after us, funding, chunk, 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 every year. And every year, we're running ahead of it, creating new initiatives, new services, new value for our community. And this is just a little overview of the many, what I would call initiatives that we are launching or have launched and are keeping afloat in the libraries. Now, a colleague friend and I sat down and we brainstormed all the program areas that come out of each one of these initiatives. There are 20. Each one of these program areas, I'll just read out some for the people in the back, just to give you a sample. So if you look under research data, the first circle, we have programs like management and curation, data literacy, data visualization, geospatial data. Under interdisciplinary research, we have digital humanities. We have collaboration in those efforts. We have metrics and impact, which is another program. There are 20 programs that we are running in the libraries. We can't have Wendy and our associate university librarians running all those. They can't lead all of these programs. It's just not possible. Every one of these programs has to have at least 1 leader, sometimes 2 leaders, to run these programs. The work is too specialized. It's too complex for any one person at the top to handle it all. It's like they're out there, they're kind of like flying the plane as they build it. So we have all of this need for leaders. And then, God, who doesn't have a million projects and committees anymore? It's like all the work of the library now seems to be done in projects. All I feel like I do is I do project management training for people. I mean, God, and the committees, you know how it is like. We are so incredibly collaborative. And we need leaders. We need leaders for every single one of these. And then a third reason why we're very, very committed to this. I don't know, has anybody read The Leadership Pipeline? This is such a good book. If anyone here is interested in climbing sort of the traditional ladder of management and so forth in libraries, I really think you should read this. This is written for the corporate community, but it's fabulous. And what I did here is I showed what's called a pipeline, and I plugged in the words that we use in the libraries for this pipeline. And let me tell you a little bit about it, because it really also feeds very well into the competency trap notion that Elliot talked about. So I do have a pointer, right? Okay. So down here, we all start as individual contributors. If you're an individual contributor, you have a certain skill set in your functional area. You have certain values and beliefs about your work. And typically, if you're an individual collaborator, your values and beliefs are about your work. You're the focus. You're the focus here. The third thing is you have a certain way of allocating your time, right? You spend most of your time doing your functional work. Your job is to develop your competency and your expertise in your functional area. And then what happens when you get promoted? So I don't know about your libraries, but in our libraries, you've been sitting around in the same job for 10, 20 years. How the heck else are you going to get any kind of salary increase if we don't promote you? How do we recognize you, pat you on the back for your extreme expertise in your functional area? We promote you. Congratulations. Now you're a supervisor. And you're expected to make this passage from individual contributor to supervisor. And mostly you're expected to do it on your own. You're going to pick it up as you go. You're smart. But what happens? You're in the competency track. This is where you're good. You're down here at individual contributor. Your expertise in your functional area is where you shine. And now you're doing work, you don't even know what it entails. What is performance management? Have you even heard of it before? What's developmental coaching? I don't know. What am I supposed to be doing with my time? My job description hardly says anything about supervisor. Look at this. Most of my job description is still about my functional work. So what do? I do my functional work. I don't make the passage from individual contributor up to supervisor. And then what happens? I screw that passage up, right? And then if I'm there long enough and I'm good enough and I'm smart enough, then then I get promoted up to director. Now my job is to coach, supervise, mentor my supervisors. But if I never made the passage correctly to supervision, how do I help coach and mentor those people to do their good job? Because I don't even really get their job. So what happens here is the pipeline starts to get all clogged up. It gets clogged up with people who haven't transferred or haven't made the passage to the next level. Each passage necessitates three things: new skills, new values and beliefs, and new time allocation. If those three things don't adjust at each passage, you've clogged up the pipeline. What happens when you don't know how to do your new job? You don't want to look stupid. You want to do what makes you feel good and what you're good at, which is your functional work, so you spend your time doing that. And you just blow off the management stuff. You don't even know what that entails anyway, really. And nobody's on your tail about it because they don't care either. They care about your functional work, right? So what happens? What happens in an organization? We have something called undermanagement. I did not coin this term, undermanagement. My head of HR did. But we have highly undermanaged libraries. So we're being managed by people who, 10% of their time. If there's a fire, if there's a problem, I'll be your manager. If everything's going okay, you'll be fine. So what happens when you're managed by somebody or supervised by somebody who's just like, you come to me when there's a problem. I'll see you next month. Well, you're undermanaged. And this is a fabulous little graph that I pulled out of a Gallup study. This little study is called the State, it's not little, it's humongous, it's like 25 million data points, okay? But it's called the State of the American Workplace. And so what it does is it shows, let's see if I can explain this, the yellow, right here. The yellow right here, it says 57%. If you are undermanaged, if you're one of those individuals underneath the person who's undermanaging you, it is likely that 57% of you are not engaged. You're just not engaged in your work, okay? All right, that's not so nice, but the black one is 40% of you are actively disengaged. The actively disengaged people are the toxic people in the organization. These are the people that just spread negativity. They're after every meeting. They don't speak up. They are disengaged and they're pissed. And they spread it around. So this is the scary thing. I mean, it's sad to be not engaged in your work, but to be actively disengaged is worse. And then this little tiny slither you can hardly see is 2%. Guess who the 2%ers are? Yeah, the ones who are engaged. So congratulations if you made it to the 2%. It probably means you were very dedicated, and you were very committed and dedicated to your work and to your students, to your faculty, to whomever you are serving. I have a feeling in libraries our slice would be a little bit bigger because we are so outward focused. So those are three really good reasons why we're very, very interested in leadership development. The first thing is that we are spawning a ton of initiatives with programs connected to them that need leadership. We are doing more and more of our work in projects and committees. And the third is that we really care about the pipeline. We don't want to plug up the pipeline. And engagement is very important to us. We do a university-wide engagement survey, and we have data. And what does data do? What does measurement do? It spurs you to action. So we are very interested in engagement and the impact that managers have on engagement. All right, so I've said a lot here by way of sort of introduction to the programs. It's 1:15. Okay, so I got to get going here. All right, so we have this little honeycomb thing is a big picture of all the different programs that we are running in our library. You're like, oh my God, That's a lot. I would love you, I'm going to go through these fairly quickly, I hope, if I can. What I'd like you to listen for is what's possible for you. So not everything is going to work for your library, but some pieces might, or some ways to adapt these programs might work for you. So that's what I'd like you to be thinking about as we go through this. And if I do have an overview of all these programs, by the way, and I will give you the URL at the end of the session. All right, so first, and then I'm going to talk about how much it costs. Okay, so the first program I want to introduce by way of this introduction. This quote, "I've never met an effective leader who wasn't aware of his talents and working to sharpen them." And our first program, our core program, does both. It helps you become very self-aware and then helps you sharpen your skills and your strengths. Okay? It's the cornerstone of all of our leadership programs. We've done this 3 times. Oh, look, there's a nice little back arrow right there. That's handy. We've done this 3 times now, so we're in our 3rd year of this particular program. We put 12 people through it every year. You have to apply. You are selected. It represents a mix of people from across the organizations. We have labor. We have every different level of the organization. This is not for the usual suspects, and you'll see a quote about that in a little bit. We have people from every single part of our libraries involved in this program, from technical services to IT to Minitex or interlibrary loan, everything. And this isn't actually one cohort, this picture. This is a mix of the 3 cohorts, and they came together for a focus group, so I just snapped a picture. Okay, so the program consists of these 4 things down here. The first thing are assessments. One of them is a self-assessment. I can talk about what that is if anybody is interested, and it's also in our overview. But basically, it helps you understand yourself in 3 different areas: in your relationships, in your thinking patterns, your mindset, and your feelings and emotions, so that EQ piece. The second major assessment is a multi-rater assessment. Has anybody here done a 360? Maybe some people, yeah, this is a tremendous experience. This is when your supervisor and your supervisor's supervisor rate you on a huge battery of questions, and you have your peers do the same thing. You choose your peers, and then if you have direct reports, they also do the same for you. So it's called 360 because you get feedback from everyone, and it's really unfettered feedback. It's anonymous, so it can be. It's a tremendously insightful tool. And then once you do those assessments, there's a coaching component. So I hire or I contract with outside coaches, real people who've actually got degrees in this area, who then work with you one-on-one to figure out, now you got all this data, what does that mean? What does it tell you? And then they start to help you develop or create your individual development plan. So that's sort of, so what? I learned all these things about myself, and now what am I going to do? How am I going to focus? And the coach walks you through that, kind of handholds you through that. And then once you're done with the coaching part, well, in the middle of that, then we move you into a peer coaching component. So you're in a triad with 2 other colleagues who are also going through the same process. And you meet and you work together on your individual development plan, on developing it, and then on implementation. So that's the basic program, the individual development program. When we pitched this, I pitched this as a self-awareness and confidence building program, because that really is what it is. So remember I talked about cultivating a leadership identity? This is about really, when it gets down to it, this is cultivating your leadership identity. Where are you strong? Where do you need to shore up your skills? Where do you need to develop? And what do you want to, how do you want to develop? And it's not just necessarily as you as a leader in the sort of traditional way. It's also, where do you want to take your career? What's your vision for yourself? It's a very, very personal process. And it's done mostly one-on-one between you and your coach and you and your peer coaches. I have tons of quotes, and probably because I chose red and blue, you can't read them. I asked participants I survey people to death. So here's one of the comments that I thought was a very nice framing for the whole program, for this particular program. She said, "I think we create the world we live in every day for ourselves. This program provided the steps and the structure to define what we want and how to achieve it. In turn, this institution created a group of individuals who are positive thinking, forward-directed, and confident, and they are bringing that approach to work with them every day. Isn't that lovely? That is really a nice, lovely framing a quote. I have lots of other ones. This is from a librarian who is in her second career. She's probably in her 50s. Can you read this in the back? Okay, I'll let you read it. Okay, so this was just instrumental. I mean, she was really at a crossroads. She talked to me about it. She was thinking this was not the right decision for her. She felt like she couldn't bring her full personality, her full self to the job. And this program helped her figure out ways to deal with that, address it, and really step into her own leadership. I also asked the supervisors of the people in the program what they think. And I have to say that overall confidence comes out at the top. Again, self-identity as leaders. I mean, people, sometimes they just need a little cultivating and a little support to step fully into that identity as a leader. So this is one quote from one of the supervisors. Here's another. These are real problems that people were having that the supervisors couldn't necessarily fix. They couldn't address it. They didn't know how to do that. So some really nice benefits. So I hope that you're thinking in your head cost-benefit analysis as you're looking at these. All right, so let me look at the concerns. The biggest concern from the supervisors is not knowing what caused what. There's no causation here. It's not like you put a person through this program and you can say, ha, here's what happened. Because there's too many other things that are going on in the environment, too many other things about the individual. So that's over across the board, that is basically the only concern that supervisors have. I don't know if it's this program or if it's other things that are making a difference. Something is making a difference. This whole thing about attendees do seem to appreciate the effort, I have to say, is really important. I don't know how many people in these programs have said, wow, they picked me. Me. You know, I've just been working in my cube all this time. Somebody sees some potential in me. Wow. I mean, just that alone is worth its weight in gold. So yeah, they have concerns about it because they don't really know what the program is actually doing, what the impact is having on impact. But every time I asked them about their concerns, they came up with yeah, I have this concern, but, and here are the buts. And those are really, really important buts. These buts have driven a program to run for 3 years, and we're expanding the program next year, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So what's it worth to people? That's really where the rubber meets the road. If you were a supervisor of somebody in this program, how much would you pay out of your operations budget, your discretionary budget, to put somebody through a program like this? That's really where I think we learn about the value. And so here's what we heard. 66% of the supervisors were willing to, well, one person wasn't willing to spend anything, so they didn't see any value out of the program. 1 out of 18 people who responded. But 66% said at least they might spend up to $750 of their own money. We don't get any money yet, by the way, very little discretionary funding, so there's no ample, pool of money here to pull from. 33% that said they'd spend between $750 to $2,000 per staff member. That's how valuable they thought it was. Oops. All right, so how much does this cost per person? Okay, actually, it hardly costs us anything at all because this is the sort of the secret to all these programs is that we have a very, very good, but small office on our campus called Organizational Effectiveness. It's out of HR, Central HR, and they are consultants and trainers who are, their sole job is, oh my God. All right, I have 5 minutes. But I do need to say this because you need to leverage the people on your campus who can do these programs for free. Okay, so it's part of their job to work with clients like us. We just happen to use a lot of them and use them frequently. So if we were going to pay for this, this is what I would pay. All right? Not a lot per person. Emily, it's nice to see you, but I'm going to skip you for now. This is another testimonial about how important this was. This is another person who just didn't have the confidence until she went through the program. Now she's a supervisor, but she wasn't prior to this. Eric, same thing. He was not a supervisor. Not that like all our people go through the program and end up being supervisors, but they certainly get a chance to really look at that deeply and see if that's where they want to go. Some people choose not to, and some people choose to. Supervisor Fundamentals is another program that we offer. So I showed you that pipeline, right? And where people get stuck. If you get stuck at that first passage, you're toast. So we don't want people getting stuck at that first passage. So this is a semester-long, half-day immersion into core supervisory skills. This is where you learn what developmental coaching is. This is what you learn what performance management is. This is what you learn, how you learn about discipline. And instead of taking 5 or 10 years like it took for me on the job to learn this stuff by osmosis, we make sure you have all the basics in this program. So you can make the passage. Nothing, because we rely on that, again, that HR function on campus. We have another program called the Director's Cohort. Now, this is an opportunity for our director level people to get together over lunch to talk about issues that are concerned to them. I don't set an agenda. Nobody sets an outside agenda. Every 6 weeks we meet, and it's completely confidential. This is where you learn from your colleagues. This is where you get advice. This is where you learn best practices. And I'm not going to read these to you. But I want to say that the second bullet was a brand new director, and he has just waxed on about, is that the right word? About how important this program has been for him to learn his job quickly and effectively. It's a rare opportunity to talk with directors outside of your own little realm. There's little or no opportunity to do it elsewhere. Okay, moving on. Costs us about $80. And I say it's about $80 because I buy lunches for him. I buy box lunches for him every 6 weeks. Big deal, right? Per person. So, all right, I have another program called for managers. It's a peer coaching program. Again, it doesn't cost us anything. I just set up the group. I teach them how to do peer coaching, give them some parameters, and then they're on their own. So, actually, I put them in. We put them into triads so that they are not working with anybody in their traditional realm. They're getting out and about, meeting new people, getting new insights, and mixing it up. Again, very highly confidential conversations that happen in the peer coaching groups. This is where you can have a sounding board. This is where you get advice. This is where you get neutral feedback, and you learn history around things that you have no idea. Why is they doing that? Huh? I don't get it. This is where you come. Total cost per person, $0. Doesn't cost us anything to have a peer coaching program. You can do this very quickly. Grand total for all the programs that we have so far, if we pay to outsource, remember the assessments and the coaching in that first program? That's where all the money is. Now, I've only paid for that 1 out of 3 years because the other 2 years I've gotten those services for free from this central group. That 1 year I didn't is because they were realigning their priorities and they didn't want to commit to the program. So I had to pay for it, other people to do it. All right, plus my time. I keep saying that, and I don't, is it 11:30? I don't really have a lot of, anyway, you can ask me about this later. What does it mean what does my time mean? We have 4 other programs that we are just beginning to launch. The one here with the arrow is called Leading at the Director and Program Level. It is a traditional classroom experience. It's a 3-day immersion. And we're doing that next month. And then the piece after that, this honeycomb in the upper right-hand corner, which is the Director's Individual Development Program, is by request of the directors. They've been seeing like all their people go through the Individual Development Program, and they want to do it. So now they're going to get to do the 360s. They're going to get to do the self-assessments. They're going to get the coaching. They're, the whole shebang. We have a mentoring program that's going to, a more official program with lots of structure and expectations that's going to be launching end of spring. And then we have a manager's program over here, this left lower honeycomb that is, yes, okay, that is, I'm just beginning to develop. This is going to be sprinkled out throughout the year. So every month, a 2-hour to 2.5-hour sort of classroom and discussion training. So think about where you are in terms of your investment. I'm going to skip over this real quick, but I just wanted to show you in contrast what the private sector spends per person annually, just to give you some sort of benchmark. And then I want to show you what we spend. This is leadership development plus other things, plus my time. So really remarkably little for amazing outcome and benefit. So 300 versus 1,200, drop in the bucket. I also want to make sure that we are all well aware how much we're worth. $2 million. Now this is very conservative. So what I did was I made the math. I think I said, if we pay somebody $50,000, which is like a drop in the bucket out here, I know. But if you pay somebody $50,000 and they work for you for 30 years, and then you give them fringe, you've got a $2 million employee in front of you. You are all worth much more than $2 million in this room, I bet. That's a lot of money. How much are we spending a year on your development? So I did a little quick math. If we spend $300 a year on your development for 30 years, we've only spent $9,000 over your lifetime of employment. $9,000 to develop you, and you cost us $2 million. Okay, wow, is that off for what? So I think there's a lot of room here, a ton of room here to improve our development and our investment in development. I'd like you to think about your development plan if you have one. We should all have one. What job-related skills will you need a year from now? Are you thinking about that? Are you thinking about what you might need for 3 years from now? Are you thinking about what you need to learn now to have the biggest impact on your success? Are you thinking about that now? If not, start writing that down. Start thinking about that. Talk with a colleague. Even if you don't have a program to help you develop it, you can do it with a friend or a colleague or as part of your unit. I just want to underscore again, leadership is an identity. It's not a position. It doesn't matter if you're in a formal position of leadership or not. We need you at all levels to be a leader. This is important to people, very, very important to people. Do you see this? This is what somebody said when we started advertising the core program. Wow. This is not just another program that identifies the usual suspects. Wow, this could be for me. Eric has some lovely things to say. Please watch his video. If you could design the perfect leadership development program at your library, what would it look like? What would you pull from what we've done? What would you adopt? Why don't you do it? Here's your leadership assignment. Go do it. Your total challenge here after today is to begin doing what you can to cultivate a culture of leadership in your libraries. Help to cultivate a growth mindset in your libraries. Use, adapt, or invent your own leadership programs. Use ours. Go ahead. And host one yourself. Just take on one and just say you're going to do it. Your leadership development opportunity is right here. I also got this, it was like somebody hit me on the head. Why don't we offer this program to everybody? I work 4 days a week. I have a 5th day. What the heck am I doing on my 5th day? I could be offering you the individual development program. So it doesn't matter if you're here in New York or if you're in Minnesota. We can do this online. We can get this accomplished. You can do your coaching on Google Hangouts. If you want to go through a program like I explained, would you please go ahead and go to this URL, z.umn.edu/IDP interest, and let me know you're interested. And if you're interested, I will do it. All right, I promised you some URLs. The video that I showed you, overview of all the programs, and my contact information is right here. So thank you for your time.